Ivan II, known as Kaloyan the Greek Slayer or alternatively as the Roman Slayer, ruled as Emperor of Bulgaria between 1197 and 1207. He is the third and youngest of the brothers who managed to restore the Bulgarian Empire, the others being Peter IV and Ivan Aseni. Kaloyan managed to stabilize the Tsar's power and the Second Bulgarian Empire's position as a leading power in southeastern Europe thanks to his successful campaigns against the Latin Empire. The name Kaloyan translates as John the Good or the John the Handsome, and is derived from Greek Kalioannis, a standard augmentation of the names of Byzantine emperors named John in the Komnenian and later periods. Another of his nicknames was Ioannitsa, variously rendered Ioannitsa, Ivanitsa, a diminutive form of Ivan or Ioan. The name used by modern Romanian historians is Ionita Kaloyan. Life. Kaloyan was born in about 1168–1169. He was the younger brother and heir of Peter IV of Bulgaria and Ivan Aseni. He and his brothers have disputed origin. In 1187 he was sent as a hostage to Constantinople, from where he escaped and returned to Bulgaria about 1189. After both of his brothers were assassinated by Ivanko, Kaloyan got an advantage over the conspirators and became the Tsar of Bulgaria. Kaloyan pursued his predecessor's aggressive policy against the Byzantine Empire to the point of making an alliance with Ivanko, who had entered Byzantine service in 1196 and had become governor of Philippopolis. Another ally of Kaloyan was Dobromir Hriz, who governed the area of Strumica. The coalition was quickly dissolved, as the Byzantines overcame both Ivanko and Dobromir Hriz. Nevertheless, Kaloyan conquered Constantia in Thrace and Varna from the Byzantine Empire in 1201, and most of Slavic Macedonia in 1202. In 1202 King Imre of Hungary invaded Bulgaria and conquered the areas of Belgrade, Branicevo, and Nis. Kaloyan retaliated in 1203, restoring Vukan's brother Stefan Nemanjić in Serbia and recovering his lands after defeating the Hungarians. Ill feelings between Bulgaria and the Hungarians continued until the intercession of Pope Innocent III. Innocent III had written to Kaloyan inviting him to unite his church with the Roman Catholic Church as early as 1199. Wanting to bear the title of emperor and to restore the prestige, wealth and size of the First Bulgarian Empire, Kaloyan responded in 1202. He requested that Innocent III bestow on him the imperial crown and scepter that were held by Simeon I, Peter I, and Samuel. In exchange he might consider communion with Rome. Kaloyan also wanted the papacy to recognize the head of the Bulgarian Church as a patriarch. The Pope was not willing to make concessions on that scale, and, when his envoy, Cardinal Leo, arrived in Bulgaria, he anointed the Archbishop Vasily of Tarnovo as Primate of Bulgarians and Vlachs. Kaloyan only received the uniate crown as Rex Bulgarorum a Blocorum or Rex Bulgariae Vlachi, not the emperor's. Kaloyan wrote blithely to the Pope thanking him for an imperial coronation and for the anointing of his patriarch. He also assured him that, on his part, he will follow the Catholic Church rites as part of the agreement. Immediately afterwards, in 1204, the misdirected Fourth Crusade conquered and sacked Constantinople, the Byzantine Roman capital, proclaiming Baldwin of Flanders as emperor. The Crusaders expressed their intention of conquering all the lands of the Byzantines and their neighbors. The impending conflict was precipitated by the Byzantine aristocracy in Thrace, which resisted the invaders and called on Kaloyan for help, offering him its submission. As the Latin emperor, Baldwin I began to subdue Byzantine cities and besieged Adrianople. In the words of the Crusader chronicler Villehardouin, Johanniza, king of Wallachia, was coming to succor Adrianople with a very great host, for he brought with him Wallachians and Bulgarians, and full 14,000 Comans who had never been baptized. On 14 April 1205, Kaloyan's Cumans managed to draw the pursuing heavy cavalry of the Crusaders into an ambush in the marshes north of Adrianople, where Kaloyan inflicted them a crushing defeat at the Battle of Adrianople. Emperor Baldwin I was captured and Count Louis I of Blois was killed. Baldwin was imprisoned in the Bulgarian capital Tarnovo until he died or was executed later in 1205. According to Greek sources, Baldwin was either tortured or thrown off a cliff. Although Latin Emperor of Constantinople Henry of Flanders wrote the Pope stating the Latin prisoners were being treated respectfully by Kaloyan. Meanwhile, during the course of 1205, Kaloyan defeated the Latins again at Sarres and captured Philippopolis, overrunning much of the territory of the Latin Empire in Thrace and Macedonia. Initially welcoming the successes of Kaloyan against the hated Latin invaders, the Byzantines, set on self-determination, began to conspire against his rule. Kaloyan also changed course, and turned mercilessly on his former allies, adopting the sobriquet Romioctonos, as a counter-derivative from Emperor Basil II's Bugaroktonos. On 31 January 1206, Kaloyan defeated the Latins again in the Battle of Rujan, and later proceeded to capture Demotika. The Bulgarians repeatedly ravaged Thrace, including the important cities of Heraclea and Kanofourion, and prompting the evacuation of other cities, such as Rodosto. Whereas in the past Kaloyan had limited his ferocity to outsmarting his enemies, his later campaigns included wholesale transfer of populations from the captured cities to distant regions in Bulgaria. Death. Kaloyan besieged Adrianople twice, but failed to take the city because of the withdrawal of his Cuman cavalry and the determined advance of the new Latin emperor, Baldwin I's brother Henry of Flanders. In 1207, Kaloyan concluded an anti-Latin alliance with Theodore I Lascaris of the Empire of Nicaea, the most powerful of the Byzantine resistance states. In the same year, Kaloyan's troops killed Boniface of Montferrat, the Crusader ruler of the Kingdom of Thessalonica. Seeking to take advantage of that situation, Kaloyan advanced on the city and besieged it with a large force, but was murdered by his own Cuman commander Manastar at the beginning of October 1207. The sources on Kaloyan's reign are for the most part foreign and hostile, stressing his brutality and cruelty. Some of this ruthlessness has been ascribed specifically to his Cuman envoy, while others have pointed out that Kaloyan's most repressive policies were aimed at the destruction of the enemy elite, while commoners were often treated with mercy. One of the legends about the demise of the Latin Emperor Baldwin describes his cruel dismemberment by an enraged Kaloyan, whose wife had falsely alleged that Baldwin had propositioned her, when he had in fact spurned her advances. The story is reminiscent of Joseph and Potiphar's wife, but fits well with the hostility of contemporary sources, which also suggest occasional outbursts of rage. Kaloyan's corpse was discovered buried in the Church of the Holy 40 Martyrs in Tarnovo. Forensic examination of the skull has revealed damage to the head incurred in youth, which may have pressed against the brain and occasionally caused considerable pain and outbursts of rage. Family. Kaloyan's wife was a Cuman princess, part of the Cuman aristocracy. After Kaloyan's death, she married his successor Boril of Bulgaria. He had a daughter, Maria of Bulgaria, by an earlier marriage. She married the Latin Emperor of Constantinople Henry of Flanders to strengthen the new alliance between Tsar Boril of Bulgaria and Henry. Maria is suspected to have taken part in the assassination of Henry, who died of poison on the 11th of June 1216. Alternate titles. When referring to Kaloyan's realm and subjects, contemporary Crusader sources, other contemporary sources, as well as the letters of the Latin Emperor Henry of Flanders, represent Kaloyan as king of Wallachia, ruler of Wallachians and leader of Wallachian armies, and sometimes as ruler of Wallachians and Bulgarians. Such sources talk mostly of Wallachians and call Ioannitsa a Wallachian and Lord of Wallachians. Contemporary papal and native sources name Kaloyan ruler of Bulgaria Matke Blokorim Bulgarians and Wallachians, of Bulgariak Blachi Bulgaria and Wallachia, or simply of Bulgaria, Bulgarians in the diplomatic exchange. Similarly, the head of the church is described as presiding over Bulgarorum a Blackorum Ecclesiam. The contemporary Byzantine historian Nikitas Choniates alternates interchangeably between the terms Mysoi, Bugoroi, and Blachoi for the people, preferring Mysia for the country, and Blokos for describing persons and language. It is inferred that geographically the medieval Wallachia in question overlaps with the former Roman province of Moesia Inferior, as distinct from the Byzantine theme of Bulgaria further west. This distinction is corroborated by a slightly earlier contemporary, the chronicler of the Third Crusade, who describes Kaloyan's predecessors as rulers of the Wallachians and the greater part of the Bulgarians, in 1189. The Byzantine historian from 13th century Theodosius Guteriota named Kaloyan the Bulgarian Ioan or Bulgarian Basileus, and wrote about Bulgarians, Bulgarian land, Bulgarian matters. Also he defined Ivan Aseni as Tsar of the Bulgarians. The same, pro-Bulgarian, point of view about the same persons and events was shared by several other Byzantine authors from 13th and 14th centuries, like George Acropolites, George Pachymeres and Nicephorus Gregoras. The native sources, written in Old Bulgarian language and used domestically, including the lead seals of the Bulgarian rulers from Ivan Aseni to Borel, use the term Emperor of the Bulgarians, as do the literary sources together with the terms Bulgarian land and Bulgarian tongue, roughly from the reign of Tsar Borel and already in the time of Tsar Ivan Aseni II. The names Wallachia, Wallachians and Wallachian totally disappeared from all historical sources connected with the Second Bulgarian Empire. The subsequent native sources, all written in Old Bulgarian language, without exceptions, treat the state as Bulgarian in the line of Tsar's title of Ivan Aseni II from his Turnovos inscription from 1230, in Christ the Lord good and faithful Tsar and autocrat of the Bulgarians, son of the old Aseni. An inscription from Boyana Church from 1259. This was written in the Bulgarian Empire under the pious and devout Tsar Constantine Aseni, and 1. Marginal note from 1269 70ths, in the days of the faithful Tsar Constantine, who ruled the Bulgarian throne. The evidence of much later works involves various levels of contradictory inference. For example, the Venetian Chronicle of Paolo Ramusha, finished in 1573 and printed in Italian and Latin from 1604 to 1634, states that Mysia was composed of the provinces of Wallachia and Bulgaria. The contemporary work of Moro Albani, Il Regno degli Slava, published in Pesaro in 1601, cites similar sources but virtually ignores Wallachians, and uses Bulgarians throughout. The Vlach interpretation was totally ignored also by the Franciscan monk Blasius Kleiner in his History of Bulgaria, written in 1761, and the Serbian historian Jovan Rajak in his History of various Slav peoples and especially of Bulgarians, Croats and Serbs, published in 1795. The same treatment was accepted also by the Bulgarian enlightener Pazi Hilondarsky in his Istria Slavjano-Bulgarskaya, written in 1762. The modern implications of these names are ethnic and cultural rather than geographical, and they are fiercely disputed. Much can be conjectured from them concerning the Romance-speaking and Slavic-speaking populations over which Kaloyan ruled, the precise extent of his empire, and his own ethnic connections. These formulae and descriptions emphasize that his power drew on more than one source. He desired to link himself to the former Bulgarian Empire, stressing the papal origins of his crown by claiming that the papacy had granted an imperial crown to the rulers of the First Bulgarian Empire, as noted above. In his correspondence with him, Pope Innocent III suggested that Kaloyan was descended both from the emperors of the First Bulgarian Empire, and from the nobility of the city of Rome. The academic tradition of interpretation of the wide use of the name Vlachs in this particular case is nothing more than a transient substitution, and confusion of several medieval authors was affirmed in the second half of the 19th century by the Czech historian Konstantin Joseph Jiricek in his History of the Bulgarians, first published in 1876, in which he ignored the idea of significant ethnic Vlach participation in these processes, and is supported by the contemporary Bulgarian medievalist and researcher of the Asans Ivan Bozhilov. Honor. The peak of Kaloyan Nunatak in Tangra Mountains on Livingston Island, South Shetland Islands, Antarctica is named for Tsar Kaloyan. Kaloyan's seal is depicted on the reverse of the Bulgarian 2 lefs banknote, issued in 1999 and 2005.